When I asked for a divorce, Joanna was getting ready to go to the hospital with her lover. Seeing I was serious, she paused for a few seconds and said, "I get it. It's my fault. Whatever you want, I'll agree to it." People say I was lucky to have been Joanna's husband for 10 years. Even in divorce, she didn't treat me badly. Only I know the year I graduated, I came to K-City for her. Nearly broke off with my parents for it. And I remember how she once broke 3 ribs when her mom found out she wanted to marry me. But none of that matters anymore. I looked at Joanna, smiled, and said, "All right then. My one demand is that you never appear in front of me again." The rain tonight was particularly heavy. The whole world seemed drenched in endless sheets of rain. An orange typhoon warning light flashed at the port, lighting up every 15 seconds, reminding everyone to prepare for disaster. At this point, Uncle Chun spoke softly with my packed luggage in hand. "Sir, the wind's calmed a bit. Let's head to the villa. The driver's waiting in the parking lot." I nodded, turning to look at the clock on the wall. It was almost 10:30. Joanna hadn't returned yet. She left earlier, saying she'd be back, but now it seemed unlikely. An hour later, the black Lincoln pulled up at the villa at the foot of the hill. I had barely stepped out of the car when I saw Joanna helping a man out. He was slender, in casual clothes with red eyes like he'd been crying. Meeting Joanna's eyes, I stood in the rain with my head down. Uncle Chun, delayed by something, hadn't come to cover me with an umbrella. Within seconds, the rain had soaked most of my hair. Joanna frowned slightly, instinctively releasing the man and placing her hand over my head. Her large palm still held some warmth, but it quickly got drenched by the rain. "The typhoon's coming. Where are you going?" she asked. I gently brushed her hand away and walked quickly to the porch, frowning. "Just go. I have things to tell you." Joanna didn't answer, turning to the people beside her. "Take Ken to the hospital first." "I got it." No wonder she stayed out so late and needed to go out again now. Her lover had likely spent the day fretting over the kid, now causing a scene to go to the hospital. Hearing this, the man clung to Joanna's sleeve, looking like he was about to cry. "Joanna, I don't want to be alone. Come with me." Joanna comforted him briefly. "Don't be afraid, you go ahead." I felt a bit dazed. Exhaling, I said to Joanna, "I'm going in first. Hurry back. I need to talk to you." With that, I walked inside. I knew she'd stay, and how long she stayed didn't concern me. A few minutes later, Joanna sat on the sofa, seeming to ponder how to explain. No need, really. I knew the man well. Joanna's mother's close friend's son, Ken. He returned from Japan a year ago. Fell for Joanna at first sight. A young guy in his 20s, loves like a moth to a flame. Burned a third of the Greens estate in half a year for her career. I used to joke she was robbing the cradle, charming the Greens out of their fortune. Now I see maybe this is love's curse. When someone gives everything emotionally, someone else gets moved. No one can resist. Like me, meeting Joanna in a foreign land at 17. When she protected me, didn't I fall for her too? Which is why I abandoned everything to come to K-City at 22. Seeing her frown, I reassured her, "You don't need to explain to me." Surprised, guilt colored her face. "Samuel, I'll arrange for the attorney to transfer 33.3% of M Group's subsidiary shares to you tomorrow." "Not 33.3%. Joanna, you cheated. I want all the subsidiary shares." Pulling out the already prepared divorce agreement from my bag, I gently pushed it towards her. Looking at her calmly, I said, "Joanna, let's divorce." The brief silence felt like the calm before a storm. Everyone knew it was false. Once the typhoon gathered strength in its eye, it would head straight for the fragile port city. The world would crumble and everything would be destroyed. I saw fierce emotions flash in Joanna's eyes. But she was no longer the girl willing to have 3 ribs broken just to marry me. So in moments, those emotions were snuffed out completely. "Samuel, you've thought it through?" Not really a question, more of a statement. I nodded, of course, or I wouldn't be here. She paused, seeming to understand. The villa wasn't far from the miller's old mansion. just over a hill. Back then, Joanna's mother was furious over our marriage. She vowed she'd never acknowledge me as her son-in-law as long as she lived. In 10 years, I've been to the villa only a handful of times. Maybe it was Joanna's trait that had Ken staying here. Or perhaps her mother believed Ken was the true son-in-law, worthy of living at the foot of the old home. Either way, I knew she was here. I came for the divorce. I know I overstepped. Don't worry, whatever you want, I'll agree. She patted her pocket while speaking. She felt for it but didn't find the Mont Blanc pen I gave her, which she usually carried. I didn't say anything, just handed her another. Tapped it in the spot where she needed to sign. I've signed. You should sign too. I don't want anything that's not mine. I prodded her subtly. She murmured a sound, hesitated with the pen cap open, and finally signed her name beside mine. 2024.11.10. Samuel, Joanna. After she signed, I took the paper, tucked it into the folder. A thin sheet that could let light through. Yet it bore the weight of my 10 years. With the divorce agreement in hand, I got up and walked to the second floor. Just as I was about to turn the corner, I leaned down and asked her, "Is the master bedroom taken?" She shook her head. No. I smirked a bit, watching the dim light fall on her. I remembered the first time I came to this cottage. Back then, she was worried I'd find it damp at the foot of the mountain. So she brought several sets of silk beddings and insisted on making the bed herself. In this very master bedroom, layer by layer, it was all genuine effort. But unfortunately, we only spent one night there. The next day, she took me to the old house. Joanna's mom almost fainted when she saw me. She pointed at Joanna and yelled, "You could marry anyone, but Jack's son? Are you just trying to drive me into my grave?" When Joanna stood her ground, her mom grabbed an expensive ivory snuff bottle from the mahogany table and smashed it on her head. Then she picked up a solid goldwood cane and hit her on the back. The dull sound went on for a while until Joanna's mom was out of breath and furiously shrieked, "Get out!" Joanna, pale and struggling to stand, held my hand and slowly walked out. At the hospital, we learned her ribs were broken in 3 places. Even then, in front of her mom, she never let go of my hand. She firmly stated, "I don't care who Samuel's dad is. This lifetime, I only want to marry him." But within a decade, before Joanna's mom even passed away, we were done. Probably for the best. Better than having her mom pass away and us not making it either way. That night, Joanna didn't stay long, only about half an hour. I guess Ken showed up at the hospital and urged her. I just really didn't like that mountain cottage. Yet that night I slept soundly. Funny enough, the typhoon took a turn, heading elsewhere last minute. Victoria Harbor stayed calm and peaceful. Still, I wondered if she remembered it was our 10-year anniversary. Half a month later, I met Joanna at Government Building No. 12 to file for divorce. In court, my lawyer whispered, "Samuel, Joanna gave you those 3 mansions, too." I looked at Joanna. She nodded at me, seemingly saying, "Take it. I owe you that." I pushed down my feelings and told the lawyer, "Forget the real estate and cars. Swap it for stocks, and let's wrap this up quickly." He nodded and went over to discuss with Joanna's lawyer. In that moment, Joanna came over to my side, almost promising, "Don't worry, Samuel. M Group's dividends will always find you." I chuckled, "I know. I just found an interesting play with those stocks this year." Seeing me smile, it lightened her up a bit. Again with her words from that night. "All right, as you like it, whatever you want, I'll agree." I said nothing, just felt a tinge of nausea. Thanks to Joanna's generosity, the asset division sped through. The final result left me satisfied. I got all shares of M Group's fully owned subsidiary, valued over $1.2 billion, and 45% of shares in 3 tech companies M Group invested in, worth about $700 million. Plus, Joanna's own startups brought my share to over $3 billion. Not too much, but not too little either. Once everything wrapped up, I finally got that certificate. Felt lighter all over. Strolling quickly down the corridor, I heard Joanna calling, "Samuel, Samuel." I stopped, annoyed, and turned to her, eyebrows knitting. Joanna, stop calling me Samuel. It's gross. She froze for a second, finally realizing my friendly demeanor over the past half-month was just waiting for this final divorce day. Silent for a bit, she eventually said, I just wanted to say, rest assured, whatever else you need in future, I'll agree. I smiled. A beam of light fell past the Roman pillars behind Joanna, directly pointing at her, like fate messing around, asking me, Samuel, you sure you're not reconsidering? She's in the spotlight. Without hesitation, I nodded. All right, Joanna, here's my request. Never show up in front of me again. For a moment, I saw cracks across her face, like being punched, left pale. As I turned, leaving easily, the sun was at its peak, glittering the road ahead, brighter here than that spotlight. News spread quickly about me and Joanna's divorce. No doubt who did it. Ken pushed persistently for a year, finally trapping Joanna with his ex's kid, Tim. Once I initiated the divorce, if he didn't broadcast it to the moon, it'd be a Green's miracle. Still, I didn't expect him to be dumber. Just out of M Group, surrounded by media, their cameras snapping, buzzing like sparrows on a hot pan. Samuel, is it true you and Joanna are divorced? Is it because you couldn't get her pregnant in the last 10 years? Samuel, rumors say your infertility kept Joanna's mom from accepting you. True? Will the divorce impact M Group's future? Are you really kicked out? Care to comment, Samuel? Couldn't be bothered. Just about to have the bodyguards block them when I saw Ken leading a 5 or 6-year-old boy approaching. His distinct tone quickly caught the reporter's attention. Oh man, you guys are just too much. She's already in pain because she can't have kids, and now she's going through a divorce, feeling like a stray dog. Yet, you keep pestering her with questions. Those reporters, sharp as ever, quickly changed direction and asked, Ken, is this child the little heir of M Group? Ken, did Joanna divorce Samuel for you and this child? Ken, when are you and Joanna getting married? Ken flashed a bright smile and waved his hand, saying, soon, soon. His name is Tim, Joanna's first boy. Seeing my unchanged expression, Ken raised an eyebrow and leaned in, whispering, stop pretending. If you want to cry, do it. You can't blame anyone. You can't have kids and you can't keep anyone in check. I didn't say a word, just looked at him and slapped him across the face. That sharp crack echoed. Ken's left cheek turned red. He looked at me in anger, saying, you dared to hit me? I chuckled, why wouldn't I dare? This kid with you is one you had with your ex-girlfriend. Joanna and I just divorced a few days ago, proof of her infidelity during the marriage. Say one more word, and I'll make sure everyone knows Tim is your illegitimate child with your ex. Let's see if the Millers would accept a random kid as their heir. I mimicked his tone as I spoke. After I finished, he glared at me with intense hatred. I didn't get it. Joanna and I were already divorced. What did he have against me? Soon, Joanna's car pulled up on the roadside. She pushed open the door and walked straight over. Those reporters tried to swarm her, but the bodyguards pushed them aside. She looked at me, her eyes deepened. In the few days since I last saw her, she's lost a lot of weight. The custom-made suit was now slightly loose. Seeing her, Ken immediately turned pitiful, trying to wrap his arm around her, but she pushed him away. She walked quickly towards me and asked, are you okay? I raised my eyebrows, wondering what was going on, but I still replied politely, I'm fine. I'll get going now. After speaking, I prepared to walk in the other direction. Ken got annoyed and yelled, Joanna, Tim's still here. Why are you asking him if he's okay? He shoved his slapped face forward, complaining, look, he even hit me. Why did he get to hit me? Joanna furrowed her brows and said, Samuel's always been calm. What did you say or do to provoke him? Can't you just behave? Ken was left dumbstruck by her scolding. And as she strode over to me, she asked, Samuel, is it okay to call you that? I neither agreed nor disagreed and asked, anything else? She paused and asked, are you leaving K-City? This morning, I brought some financial people from Z-City to handle a few companies. She must have guessed I was leaving. I nodded. She asked again, "When will you come back?" Before I could answer, Ken let out a scream, clearly shocked by Joanna's words, as if only now realizing what was being implied. I smiled, my eyes glinting, and said, "When Ken throws you a celebration party, I'll come to bring a gift." "Joanna, how about I give you a grand present then?" She lowered her gaze, silent, her mood seemingly off. Over the years, I'd rarely seen her so downcast. It reminded me of when we first met. I had just arrived in Los Angeles and wasn't familiar with anything. I was often mocked as a country bumpkin. They'd stick gum in my hair and smear glue on my seat. Minor bullying that was neither here nor there. The teacher didn't care. Until one day, a few boys, laughing, said they'd take me somewhere fun. They were dragging me along when, at the last second, Joanna blocked our way. She looked up at them and coldly said, "Fuck off." Eventually, it ended in a fight. She got bruised but still looked at me gloomily, saying, "From now on, stick with me." I carefully applied medicine for her and nodded. In that moment, I was captivated. After that day, I became her shadow. I learned she'd been tossed abroad alone at 15. Those 2 years abroad left her with severe depression. Right now, she seemed the same, but I didn't want to care anymore. After all, we were divorced, so I pretended not to notice. A few seconds later, she looked at me and said, "All right, make sure you come." A few days later, I returned to Z-City. The moment I landed at Z-City's capital airport, I felt a bit nervous about returning to my hometown. I remember when I was 22. I graduated and followed Joanna to K-City. At first, my parents didn't react much, just complaining that grown sons are hard to keep. But not long after, they discovered Joanna's identity and almost forced me to return to Z-City. My father, like Joanna's mother, was furious, almost having a heart attack, telling me to leave before he really got too sick to regret. I refused, not understanding why they wouldn't allow us to be together, creating a standoff. Until Joanna had 3 ribs broken and spent months in the hospital yet insisted on marrying me. Only then did my mother soften, half forcing, half persuading my father to fly to K-City and reveal an old story to me. It turned out both my father and Joanna's mother had once been stowaways to K-City. They'd been caught and detained together several times. The most dangerous time, Joanna's mother nearly died in jail, and my father gave up his water and food to save her. But good deeds didn't repay. During a massive raid, Joanna's mother reported my father. Because of that report, my father lost any chance to stay in K-City. Meanwhile, Joanna's mother stayed and made a fortune. Since then, my father, unwilling, went on to the capital. After countless struggles, he achieved what he has today. Knowing Joanna's identity, my father wouldn't relent. After all, with a mother like Joanna's, how could Joanna be any good? Later, my parents wanted to take me away, but I didn't want to leave. Eventually, things almost broke down between us. 10 years later, looking back now, whether it's the betrayal of Joanna's infidelity during our marriage or anything else. So, in the end, we got divorced and went our separate ways. It was karma, plain and simple. And really, I guess I brought this on myself. "Samuel? Samuel!" A voice, slightly familiar but distant, called out. I looked up, a bit surprised. I didn't expect it to be her picking me up. The woman walking towards me was tall and slender, wearing a dark, tailored coat that reached her knees. Underneath, a black turtleneck made her look especially classy. Her trousers were sharp and matching the style, paired with loafers, giving off an intellectual vibe. I waved and smiled, greeting Sophia. Long time no see. Sophia, the daughter of my mom's friend. Same age as me, she was always top of her class, never taking second place. She comes from a family with a prestigious academic background. I heard she's now teaching psychology at Peking University. She seemed happy to see me. She took my suitcase and handed me a hand warmer that had already warmed up in her pocket, saying, "It's cold." Huh? It's only early December, but Z-City has already seen its first snow. Compared to K-City, Z City is definitely colder. I nodded. Where are my parents? Are they? Over the past couple of years, as we all got older, my relationship with my parents improved quite a bit. But in the past, I did hurt them, so if they didn't come, I'd understand. They're outside. It's too cold, so I didn't let them get out of the car. You'll see them in a bit. A few minutes later, I got in the passenger seat of the SUV. I saw my parents sitting in the back. My heart pounded a bit, and in just a second, my nose tingled as I held back tears. Before I could speak, my mom leaned forward. She gave me a once-over, her eyes welling up. Samuel, you've lost weight. Have you not been eating well? After not seeing each other for a while, the first thing she says is, you've lost weight. I pressed my lips together and called out, Mom. All the resentment and disappointment from who knows how long burst out at seeing her. 5 years in love, 10 years married, wasting half of my life. How could I not be bitter? In K City, I had no safe harbor, only the small world I held up myself. But in Z City, I have my parents. Mom wiped her tears, and the two of us just looked at each other, tear-eyed, in someone else's car. All right, why are you crying? It's nothing monumental. Don't let Sophia see us like this, Dad said after a few seconds. His voice was awkward but tried to be strong. Sophia raised a brow, smiling. I left my ears at home today. I didn't hear a thing. With that, the somber mood lightened up a bit. I looked at my dad, opening my mouth, Dad. Dad gave a small nod and looked at me deeply. Home. It's good that you're back. That evening, I went home with my parents to Z City. Sophia had to teach the next day, so she drove back to H-Town. This apartment used to be where I lived before going abroad. Now, my parents have long since bought a bigger, more luxurious place. Yet, I still wanted to stay here. After a shower, I asked Dad, Dad, can I sleep with you tonight? Mom hummed, back home and already hogging your dad. Really? I joked, the order of things is reversed. Mom was momentarily speechless, but then laughed. Dad couldn't refuse me and nodded. All right, we'll have a father-son talk. We'll sleep in the guest room then. I chuckled lowly, feeling genuinely happy. Once Dad and I turned off the lights and lay down, he couldn't hold back and quietly asked, Did you guys, split? It's like he was afraid saying her name would make me sorrowful, so he skirted around it. I responded quietly, yeah, split. Took quite a bit of her money too. Dad gave me a playful pinch. What are you doing, son? You two were one. What's hers is yours. Besides, she was outrageous. Should have left her with nothing. They're rotten to the core. Listening to Dad's almost indignant rant, I just smiled, saying, Yeah, Dad, you and Mom are good judges of character. I was blind, I regret wasting so much time. Would things have been different if I'd left with you guys back then? My speech halted Mom. After a long pause, she replied, Everyone gets blindsided sometimes. It's not a waste. There's no path in life that doesn't count. Those years made you who you are now. I let a tear fall in the darkness. Dad didn't blame me, but I felt incredibly foolish. I was so certain Joanna would always love only me. A few seconds later, Dad shifted, giving an exasperated sigh. Sophia's a good one. Even though she got married and divorced, I was amused. Such a quick transition in topics. Dad, I know Sophia's great, but you can't force things. She doesn't Dad cut me off. Who says she doesn't? She's liked you for years. If you hadn't gone after Joanna in K City and married her, Sophia wouldn't have listened to her mom and got married, then divorced in months. Hasn't married since. I paused, recalling the times Sophia ran after me growing up. When I was 15, I crashed my motorcycle into a pillar, skinning my knees. Sophia, usually so calm, panicked, running around like a headless chicken. She murmured, don't worry, we'll get to a hospital. Where's the hospital? I almost laughed, coming back to the present with Dad watching me. I turned away, replying, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. I'm not planning to marry again. I need sleep. Dad just said okay, but still told me to think about it before we fell asleep. A week of dreary rain. The typhoon didn't make landfall but still had an impact. at the private hospital in downtown K-City. Ken's voice was sharp and grating. I don't care. Get her here now. I want to see Joanna. She can't treat me like this. Joanna rubbed her temples, feeling ever more exhausted since Samuel left. So Noisy, I'm here. She spoke from the doorway of the hospital room. Ken's eyes turned red the moment he saw her. He dashed to the bed without even putting on his shoes. Joanna, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have made such a scene about you and Samuel's divorce. I didn't realize it would impact M Group. The incident Ken caused outside M Group quickly spiraled, and before long, the parent company stock just kept dropping. Joanna knew deep down, it wasn't just the media buzz causing this. Samuel had made his move. After returning to Z-City, he sold all his shares to GT Group. That's his father's company, and their influence is way bigger than Joanna imagined. In just a week, Samuel used GT Group to pressure M Group. If M Group and its subsidiaries don't want to become GT Group's branches in K-City, they have to buy back the shares at a high price. If they don't, GT Group will soon swallow all the companies, and then M Group will follow. If M Group ends up under Samuel's family, Joanna feared her mother would be furious. Joanna took a deep breath of cold air. So his idea of a fun game was to make her and M Group sacrifice themselves like Ken did for the past year, fueling GT Group. Such precise, ruthless tactics. Then she shook her head, thinking, that's just like him. She remembered him being just 17, and after getting familiar with the surroundings, he started dominating everywhere. In one competition, he single-handedly stood against 14 teams and several contemptuous mentors. With only 500 left, they started, and within half a month, he swallowed up entire assets of 4 teams. Then together, they beat the remaining 10 teams, growing from 500 to 5,000, and then to precisely 79,624. In just 3 months, they won, and they won big. Later, he donated all the money they made back home. It enraged those blonde Americans speaking ABC, but they were powerless. Thinking back, she couldn't help but smile. Those years, just the two of them, far away in a foreign land. Her Samuel always by her side. He was like a little sun, melting all the malice away. He would hold her and comfort her hearing arguments with her mom. Knowing she was alone overseas, having been isolated, looked down upon, bullied, and ostracized. Enduring unwarranted insults and scolding. He'd shed tears for her pain. All those emotions that pushed her near breaking point. All resolved one by one after he came into her life. Even when she harmed herself during depressive episodes, he would throw himself on her, hold her tight and keep saying, I'll always be with you. Samuel was the one who brought her back to life. Joanna? Joanna? Ken's frantic shaking snapped her back. Ken pouted discontentedly. What are you thinking about? Did you hear me? My dad's asking when we're getting married. Joanna pushed Ken's hand away. Marriage? Her husband has always been just one person. After a few seconds, it was like she figured it all out. She realized everything she had already belonged to Samuel. If he wanted it, she wouldn't hesitate to offer it to him. Now that he wanted to play, why not? With that, the warning was loud and clear. Enough, I have things to do. Don't cause any more trouble. With that, Joanna turned and left, leaving Ken yelling desperately behind her. In the speeding car, Joanna frowned. She watched the video showing Samuel's parents beaming at him, and next to him sat a poised woman. She had seen this woman in Samuel's childhood photo albums before. She remembered the name Sophia. Apparently, in less than half a month, Samuel's parents were already considering finding him a new bride. And this woman clearly adored Samuel. A few seconds later, Joanna closed her eyes deep in thought. She realized she was wrong. She assumed that even after divorcing, she could keep him by her side. Even though she signed the papers, it was just to ease his resentment. After all, they had over a decade together. Surely his soft heart would forgive her. But now she was suddenly anxious. GT Group or Z-City, it didn't matter. Her biggest fear was still his parents. 10 years ago, Samuel was willing to abandon everything for her and head to K-City. But returning to Z-City now, It seemed impossible for him to head south alone again. Opening her eyes, resolve flickered in Joanna's eyes. She picked up her phone and made a call. Sell the M Group shares and book me the earliest flight to Z City, the sooner the better. Good morning, Samuel. I've got good news and even better news. Which one do you want to hear first? During this period, I got into GT Group, starting with 3 billion. No one dared to say a word. Right now, talking to me is a secretary my dad found, Johnny. At 25, he was handpicked right after graduation. Having him as my secretary is a bit of a waste. I chuckled and said, "Tell me the good news first." His eyes sparkled. This morning, Sophia brought flowers again. Said she was just passing by, but I doubt that. That bouquet looks like it's from the old shop on West Street. Quite a trip, wouldn't you say? Only then did I notice a bunch of roses on the large desk, pink with a hint of white. Not many, 11, symbolizing faith and waiting. I raised an eyebrow, asking casually, "What's the even better news?" Johnny got more serious, speeding up his words. "Got news from K-City this morning. M Group released shares. Enough for us to buy everything." Seeing I didn't reply, he dialed down the smile a bit. Cautiously asked, "Should we buy them all?" After all, being married to Joanna for 10 years, it's normal for Johnny to be unsure of my feelings. I looked up, raised an eyebrow. "Why not buy? This money, isn't it?" Johnny nodded. "Got it." I gestured with my chin. "Go ahead." Once he turned around, I grabbed my phone to message Sophia. "Thanks for the flowers. How about dinner with me tonight?" Almost immediately, a reply buzzed in. "My pleasure." Sophia got there first, booked a private room inside, and was pouring tea. "Sorry, traffic was bad," I said. I put down my bag and sat to her right. The room could fit 5 or 6 people, but I chose the seat right next to her. She paused for a moment and glanced up at me. I'd purposefully gone home to change clothes and fix my hair. I swapped my lake blue silk shirt and black slacks for a fitted cashmere sweater and casual pants. Knowing she likes a woody scent, I even changed my cologne. Sophia set down the teapot, smiled, and asked, "Are we expecting more guests?" I raised an eyebrow. Can't a guy change his look for someone he likes? Even though I didn't have strong feelings for her, I had to admit it. She's really smart, and dealing with smart people is straightforward and effortless. Especially since she likes me, it felt even more thoughtful. Seeing that I didn't admit it, she didn't probe further. She just told the waiter to serve the food. We chatted casually. From the north to the south, from domestic to international. Suddenly, someone pushed the door open. The voice carried a hint of someone who had just arrived from afar. "Sorry, the room is full. Mind if I join?" Joanna somehow learned the local customs and knew about sharing tables. Without looking up, I said, "Not convenient. Get out." She chuckled and sat down next to me. She glanced at the crease on my pants, and her face fell a bit. "Come on, Samuel, I've been on a plane for hours. I'm tired," she whispered, as annoyingly stubborn as always. "Sorry, Sophia, do you mind?" Joanna acted like she just noticed Sophia. She threw a fake smile and asked. Sophia looked at me and laughed. "I don't mind, but we've finished eating. If Joanna's hungry, you can order more. This stuff is just leftovers. It might be hard to digest." I raised an eyebrow. Sophia was more aggressive than I imagined. With that, she stood up and offered me a hand. Without hesitating, I took her hand, stood up, and we leaned into each other, beyond the boundaries of friendship. In an instant, Joanna's face darkened. She reached out and said, "Samuel, come home with me." I couldn't help but laugh and ask back, "Home? Where?" "Here is my home. You want me to follow you back to K-City? That's your home, not mine." Hearing my words, her back straightened, and her face turned pale, almost as if she couldn't breathe. A few seconds later, she said, "It was my fault. Whatever you want, the M Group. If you come home with me, I'm willing." "Joanna, you seem to have a bad memory." I cut her off. "You seem to forget we're already divorced. I'm not going back, and I won't accept any of your olive branches." She pursed her lips, seeing my resolution. Most of the color drained from her face. She looked like she had taken a heavy blow. My brow furrowed as I suddenly remembered the time she and I were robbed in Los Angeles. I still remember that was the second year I went to LA. The group was fierce, seemed to be prepared, blocking several Asians, making us strip and hand over valuables. Joanna shielded me with her body, glaring at them. She whispered in my ear, "Stay close to me." I nodded repeatedly, scared that even a slight mistake would cost us our lives. A few minutes passed, and she seized the moment to fight one of them. We didn't expect him to have a firearm. The bang-bangs left my soul shattered. But her expression remained unchanged, just telling me, "Stay close. Run. Samuel, don't be afraid. Follow me." My feet were like the wind, following her out. When we reached safety, I noticed her arm and shoulder had a bullet wound, and she didn't mention it to keep me from being scared. Luckily, the thugs were using old, recycled bullets without casings, or else her left arm could have been wasted. I cried a lot, fearing she'd die. Tears kept streaming down. Back then, her face was as pale as now, but she still comforted me. "Don't cry, it looks ugly, like a little kitten." Now, it feels impossible to return to those times. I don't want to be driven by past emotions. So I looked at her and said, "I remember you saying on our divorce day whatever I asked for in the future, you'd agree." Joanna's expression changed, trying to stop me, but it was too late. "I want you to never show up before me again." I said it twice, each time more seriously. More and more determined each time. After saying it, I leaned into Sophia and quietly said, "Joanna, I'm ready to try with someone else. Don't seek me out, I want a fresh start." At that moment, destruction. All was lost. Joanna was like a vulnerable city swept away by a hurricane. She blinked and a tear fell. Her mouth moved, but I could barely hear the words. "Don't be like this, don't do this to me, Samuel." She left everything behind, offering the M group as a sacrifice, just hoping for my forgiveness, to bring me home. But here I am, holding someone else's hand, saying I want a new life. I stopped looking at her and walked away with Sophia. I knew she'd been betting on my soft heart. The divorce was one time, and her illness was another. But what did I do wrong to deserve this treatment? I resented her too, hated her for being so good to me then, and hated her for ruining everything now. Joanna fell ill. She was stubborn. Her extreme mental illness triggered by me relapsing. She was in a daze every day, unable to eat on her own, reliant on cold medical equipment to sustain vital signs. The M Group was a mess too, with GT Group seizing the opportunity to acquire many shares, becoming the second largest shareholder next to Joanna. I heard Joanna's mother couldn't take the news and ended up in the emergency room. Mother and daughter both fell ill, and without any support, the M Group might collapse. In the end, Ken found himself begging in front of the Greens, using his life and Tim's future as leverage to force them to invest. What a naive kid, yet so reminiscent of how every parent worries for their child. In less than a month, the Greens were nearly brought to their knees, yet M Group was still struggling. Meanwhile, GT Group, my group, was quietly eating up all market shares, making a fortune. Messing up once can be brushed off as an oversight. Messing up twice is just foolish. As M Group was about to crumble and become GT Group sustenance, and Joanna was nearing her end, Joanna's mother came to Z-City, pleading with my parents. She had just left the hospital, her head full of white hair, trembling as if she had little time left. In front of my father, she seemed to have aged not just 20 years, but more, bowing deeply. Within seconds, she was on her knees, shouting desperately, "You can have M Group, my life, even make me kneel before you and apologize. I was wrong, untrustworthy, lower than a dog. But my daughter, she truly loves your son. All I ask is that you allow him to see her once. It was my fault. I said I had cancer and needed my biological grandson's bone marrow to survive. I drugged Joanna and that boy from the Greens into spending a night together. It's all my fault. Joanna never loved anyone else. She only wanted to save my life." Her voice was filled with regret, each word tear-jerking with her fear of losing her daughter. It's vastly different from those years she left Joanna alone overseas and broke 3 of her ribs. Even if I understand this might be a mother's love, I can't help but feel disgusted. It's disturbingly twisted. Even with Joanna's mother's kneeling plea, my father didn't make any decision for me. He wanted me to decide for myself. He just arranged for Joanna's mother to be sent to the hospital where Joanna was and ordered to find the best doctors. I know my father feared that if I ever reconciled with Joanna, her mother cannot die because of me. Parents' love for their child is far-reaching. Yet my mother couldn't hold it. Clutching her chest, she kept asking me, "Samuel, what do you think?" I exhaled and said, "I'll go see her." In the hospital, Joanna was rarely lucid. She had just seen her mother, full of white hair, with no trace of her past ambition. It's all her fault. A small mistake with grave consequences, hurting both herself and her mother. At this moment, she still didn't know her mother's cancer was fake. She only knew that soon, Samuel would be here to see her. Half an hour later, I knocked on the hospital room door. Joanna looked at me with surprise but sank back when she saw Sophia behind me. Still, she didn't dare act tough. Half sitting up, she said, "Samuel, you came to see me." I nodded and said to her, "I came to tell you 2 things. If you can get through them, live on. If not, you're free to die." Joanna's face was pale, yet she forced a smile. "I can get through it, as long as you're by my side." I didn't respond, cutting straight to it. "Your mother doesn't have cancer. You don't have to worry about her dying from illness. But then again, who knows? Anything's possible." She only paused a second before understanding, lips trembling. "So, that night," I nodded, "your mom drugged you." She lowered her head, appearing pained and helpless. I continued, "Luckily your mom doesn't have cancer, because if she did, Ken's kid couldn't save her. That child isn't yours, Joanna. The reason we haven't had kids in our 10 years of marriage is because you're infertile, not me." Her face turned even paler, quickly grasping my point. Looking at me, she said, "Samuel, I know I interrupted. You of course didn't cheat with Ken because I couldn't have kids. You were just set up by your mom and believed her, wanting to keep the child to save her. But Joanna, I don't believe you're that stupid enough to think your mom saying she had cancer was true." I looked down at her. "You wanted to save your mom, but you also wanted your own child. Even if you won't admit it, I know you too well. You didn't verify if your mom really had cancer because you wanted a reason to keep the child. You were going along with it, waiting for the child to be born, for me to accept it. After all, in your mind, I couldn't have kids, right? Joanna, you didn't just betray me and our marriage. You insulted my intelligence, disrespected my character, and even took my love for granted. So, when I say I want a divorce, it's not out of spite, but because I mean it. Do you understand?" I didn't expect that as soon as I finished, Joanna would pass out. Within half an hour, she received 2 emergency notifications. I stood outside the ICU frowning. Watching Sophia, who came with me, suddenly light up, I asked, "You're a psych expert, right? What do you think?" She nodded. "It's real. Psychiatric illnesses are the hardest to treat. Without the will to live, organs can fail quickly, as shown in many clinical cases. What you just said could very well push her to die. I came to see just how serious it was, and I think she might soon pass." I was silent for a few seconds before asking, "Then am I?" She shook her head. "Not quite. Not even manslaughter." I gave a small acknowledgement, not speaking further, just impressed with Sophia's knack for understanding people's minds. Another hour passed. Joanna was eventually saved. The doctor said, "Joanna's will to live is very weak. It's hard to say how much she'll recover." I have to admit, at this moment, most of the resentment in my heart dissipated. Hearing the doctor say Joanna's will to live is low finally gave me peace. Let it be, let it go for both our sakes. After that day, I never went back to the hospital. Never seeing each other again might just be the best ending for Joanna and me. As for her illness, there are professional doctors and psychologists to treat her. We're no longer 17. It's even harder being in a foreign place like Los Angeles. She doesn't have to shield me anymore, and I don't have to cry over her. Later, I heard from someone. Joanna's mother didn't make it and passed away. It finally brought Joanna some clarity. After returning to K-City, she sold M Group and left for Los Angeles. As for Ken, not only did he miss the wedding, but he was also devastated when Tim was taken away by his biological mother. It was only after the Greens were dragged down that he began to regret it. But all this, it has nothing to do with me anymore. In a blink of an eye, February came, and New Year was approaching. Everywhere in Z-City was filled with the New Year vibe. Although I grew up here, I realized it had been over 10 years since I wandered around the city properly. So I suggested exploring it. But my parents, having stayed in Z-City for too long, weren't interested. One waved it off with a not interested, and the other nudged me saying, "Let Sophia accompany you." I was about to forget it, thinking I could always go by myself. But the next day, Sophia was already waiting downstairs, following my mom's orders. We went to many places over those few days, mostly different little alleyways. There's this distinct laid-back and relaxed vibe unique to Z-City everywhere. The 100-year-old ash trees lining the alleys swayed their golden leaves. Passing through, there was a red persimmon tree from some household, laden with red lantern-like persimmons. Full as could be, no one picked them, leaving birds flying by to peck at them, dropping with a plop on the ground. In K-City, every inch of land is precious. Even at the top of Victoria Peak, there's no leisure. Everyone's sprinting ahead, forgetting how they got there in the first place. I was so absorbed by that persimmon tree until Sophia's voice brought me back, saying she'd be right back. I nodded, letting her do her thing. I sauntered slowly, browsing while waiting. Minutes later, Sophia came back with a simple bouquet made of persimmons. I raised my brow, showing a hint of surprise. "Did you pick these from someone's house?" She nodded. "I saw you staring for a long time, so I went to find the homeowner." They were happy to hear it was for a boy and clipped quite a few down with a pole. "The peanuts are freshly roasted too. They smell wonderful." I admired them fondly, taking a close look and said, "This is way more my style than the bouquet of lovers' tears." After saying this, Sophia hesitated for a moment. I realized I might have been rude and apologized. "Sorry, I didn't mean it like that." But she cut me off. "Samuel, I know what's on your mind. These years, I wasn't truly waiting for you. It's just that finding someone who gets me is hard, so I stayed single." I looked at her, knowing she understood what I meant. Compared to the faith in a lover's devotion, this simple life with persimmons and peanuts is what I want now. I've loved too deeply and painfully. I don't want to go through it again. I tried to speak, but found myself at a loss for words. Should I say, "I'm not interested in you, even though you say you weren't waiting for me, but I still feel pressured"? Or should I say, "No matter what you do, if you're interested in me, I'll feel uncomfortable"? Yet I recently used her and claimed I was starting anew. How do I even explain that? A few seconds later, it seemed she read my thoughts. She looked at me and seriously said, "Friends, just friends. Isn't helping each other what friends do?" Her straightforwardness and insight stripped away the layer I most worried about. Even if she might not be entirely sincere, her candid declaration reassured me, promising not to overstep. It gave me room and protected my sensitive, awkward heart. I was sincerely grateful. A moment later, I smiled and said, "Thanks." She nodded, turning ahead to lead the way through Z-City, and I followed slightly lighter-hearted and a bit hopeful. Not just for the time ahead, but for the future. Though a blank future can't substitute destiny, having met was a blessing. If we truly have a future together, things can naturally be as they may. We can worry about later when it comes. Joanna's epilogue. After my mom passed away, I brought her back to K-City to be buried with my grandpa. My grandpa died in an accident when I was 15. His abrupt departure sent Mom into deep grief. I always reminded her of him. That's why she sent me abroad. I often wondered if I would have ended up like Grandpa, maybe even dying by accident if I hadn't met Samuel 2 years later. Luckily, I had Samuel. Yet I lost him. Returning to K-City woke me up. Painfully so, I realized that this city was filled with our memories. We lived here, facing each other daily for 10 years. I don't know what blinded me, making me lose him. I just know I brought all this upon myself. He loved me so much, bearing a decade of gossip for me. But I got greedy, wanting my child even when I had him. I couldn't stay in K-City any longer. So I sold M Group. I couldn't set foot in Z-City again either. He said he no longer wanted to see me, that he was starting afresh. So I crossed the ocean, back to Los Angeles. Only here, there's still something somewhat sufficient to support the rest of my life. One day, I returned to campus, sitting under the big tree we always visited. I lingered for ages. By the time I stood, my foot was numb. Bending forward to move my leg, I saw a line of words. It was old yet barely readable. Joanna, I really like you. Right then, I was so overwhelmed I couldn't even stand. I coughed for ages, finally catching my breath after coughing up a black blood clot. I knew my days were numbered. Staring at those words, my rationality shattered into pieces again. I sobbed uncontrollably behind the tree. What had I done? Until the sunset, I pulled out a Mont Blanc pen, long out of ink, writing stroke by stroke. Samuel, I'm sorry.